Hello, everybody. It's Just in Case from American Newscape. Rejoining our friend, cousin, Scott Dudley from American Consciousness. Hello, Scott. Welcome back to American Newscape.
Isn't it amazing? We just got our DNA back, and we are cousins, and it is such a small world.
Well, reality, all human beings are cousins of one another. It's a matter of how many times removed.
Right, right, right. And there's certain rules about levels of removal, but that's
Yeah.
not the show today. So we
No.
won't talk too much about
Okay.
that.
So, what is this
Now,
show, Scott?
have we? I want to say because we've got this little catchy jingle at the beginning. Have we figured out a way to sell people the download for ringtones and stuff like that?
No, I don't think our consciences would be clear if we charged for something we got for free.
Oh, yeah. Actually, that sounds like a really good business model.
Well, sadly, that's what you see out there.
They've been picking stuff off of people's front yards, all the stuff that they don't need anymore because they got new couches and stuff, and
There you go.
opening up a business.
There you go. So,
So we talked about your favorite things last week, and that is one way to kind of get your head in a better place, right? And
mhm.
just find your favorite things, and then you don't feel so bad, just like the song says. So there is another. There is a paradoxical, the opposite way, and I think the opposite way, in some respects, is kind of even cooler because it's got this fearless quality to it that once you get used to doing it, it's like you begin to sense that I can do I can tolerate anything. So we want to talk a little bit about that, and I want to start with the happy side of it. So I worked for years in substance use, and it gets really serious there, right? When somebody's trying to stay clean and sober, and they're doing it to impress their probation officer because they want to keep their kids and they don't want to go to jail, and there's a lot of really good reasons for this. And you're driving down the road, and all of a sudden, a song comes on, and it's that song, and you're like, oh man, that's a song that reminds me of all the fun I used to have when I was using. And then you realize the next exit on the road is where your dealer lives, and and you're 90% there. You got your turn signal turned on.
I'm better because I have my turn signal on, or that I know that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, this is just like their urge from hell because we all have urges, right? I mean, Timu texts me every day to remind me of urges that I should be having, for 8.99, whatever it is. And so there are a lot of different ways, and I think a lot of us are, one of the real benefits, if you will, of recovering from substance use is that you get it when you're getting played. It's like you now know when somebody's or something is pulling your string to get you to react emotionally to it because you've had this really strong thing going on for a long time, and you had to fight maybe really really hard to get. I mean, you and I, we ditched cigarettes, so that's a good example. I'm sure you're almost ready to ditch coffee.
No,
That's another good example.
no, 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 no. I have voices in my head that tell me to drink coffee, so it must be important to me.
Right. It's paid for by the Columbia Coffee Growers Association.
The coffee cartel, so to speak. Yeah, 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 yeah.
No, but so for us, we have urges, but they're yeah, it's almost, I want to say trivial, but they're not trivial to us, right? I mean, when you want that new thing, or you really want to go out to eat tonight, or boy, that pizza sounds delicious, or those aren't trivial to us in the moment. But compared to somebody whose freedom depends on driving past this exit while that song is playing, and their dealer lives right there, that's an urge. So that's what we're talking about, is urges. And urges can, it's a good season to talk about urges because a lot of times our resolutions are directly opposite of our urges.
Well, I believe you're right. That's I think our resolutions tend to be our conscious trying to outsmart our subconscious, which never
Re-
happens.
that's a really good way of putting it. But yeah, but what is it called in statistics? You revert to the norm over
Well,
time. So you can do outlier stuff for a couple of weeks, but if your norm is to eat, double cheeseburgers every day, then after a couple of weeks, the odds are good statistically that you're just gonna like. That's why resolutions aren't really effective.
no, absolutely. And, we all, even us non-professionals, realize that we're not going to do any behavioral modification until we're ready to do so.
It's like the old Nancy Reagan thing with resolutions. It's like just say no to drugs. And it's like that's a resolution. Okay, it's like well that's really clever, but how do you get by it? But this is a technique, and I want to say this is one of my favorite techniques because I've got a little bit of masochist in myself, and I love denying myself treats. So and I love wanting treats too, which is so I don't stop wanting them. I look at the treat and I say, "Oh man, do I want that as badly as I've ever wanted anything in my life?" And I feel it, and I feel it just build up, and I let it build up, and I let it. And what I'm doing is I'm surfing. I'm surfing the urge. So the urge is like a giant wave crashing on the beach, and I am riding that wave, but I'm not giving into it. I'm just feeling it. And so whatever that thing is it food, is it entertainment, is it a certain way you want the world to be, all you have to do is sit with it and feel it and not do it. And what you're getting at the end of the day is you're getting this amazing control because now you've broken down the point where I want it, I'm doing it. And sometimes we stop and fail to recognize that point. It's like, nope, you have to stop and do something to get it.
Well,
Or you can just sit here and want it.
well, if we roll back to conscious and subconscious, once you make that conscious decision, what you're doing, whether you're a masochist or not, if you're getting endorphins from denying yourself of what you don't want to do anyway, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And that's good urge management. But subconscious, I know this was before your time, but the primary technique for stopping smoking for people was to put a rubber band around their wrist because if they reached for a cigarette pack, they were supposed to snap their wrist. And what that was to do is to overpower the subconsciousness and come back to the conscious world.
To bring you present into the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's right. I remember I committed to stopping smoking. What was I thinking?
Right, right. But that was a good technique for some.
Interestingly, they used that rubber band technique for self harmers, and
Okay.
self harmers are people who cut themselves or scratch themselves or poke themselves or pinch themselves or do other pain creating things, and it's exactly that same rationale. It's to oh, I'm alive right now, and the pain kind of brings me back to that. So it's interesting that it had its roots in the stop smoking movement.
Well, it probably had its roots the day they invented the rubber band. But
Oh, look what I can do with this.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's mind over matter. There's a lot of that. But you voicing the masochism of enjoying denying yourself. I never thought of that concept because we're all proud of ourselves once we give up something we know we shouldn't be doing.
But I don't give. But the urge, I never give up. Right? It's like so.
No.
Some people really try to get behind their urges. Like I'm just not going to want this anymore. And for me, I think urges are a lot, as you suggest, almost subconscious.
Yeah.
It's like they just well up, and all of a sudden there it is. And depending on circumstances, you know, you're driving by In and Out, and and you can smell downwind, and the line's really short, and somebody just gave you $20 for no particular reason, and all these things come together, and then you got to go, okay, I really would just love to have an animal style double cheeseburger right now. That would be so. But throw some animal style fries in with that, absolutely. You know, and you're just grooving on that absolute caramelized onion deliciousness, and you're able to kind of sit with that and not do it.
And still get the benefit of it to a degree.
I don't. So when you're urge surfing, you don't really pretend to do it. So I don't know that you actually get the taste of it. Um, I think more at the end of the day, you get a sense of whatever the world throws at me that I decide I'm not into doing, no matter how tempting, no matter how delicious, no matter how enticing. Because let's face it, there are some really good psyops commercial stuff going on right now. They know how to push our buttons, right?
Well, yeah, they do, and but we all need to be working to not be susceptible to that. And because it's always, I think it's probably always been in society, whether it was peer pressure, one caveman telling the other caveman, you need to be beating your woman like I am, kind of thing. But I'm still with you on your endorphin release of denying yourself, and that seems actually ingenious. So,
Again, it's one of my favorite techniques, and I'll be honest, it didn't really happen with me with substances. I think I really refined it when I was working with people who were having substance issue stuff, and then I went low carb, and you don't know. I shared a dozen Dunkin' Donuts once with the guy who wrote the Woodsy Owl, Give a Hoot, Don't Pollute song.
okay.
And when I was 12, I had a stomach ache for like 2 days. Um, but so I love carbs. Carbs love me, and it is a match made in heaven. I could sit there and eat plain white bread and feel like I was really accomplishing something culinarily gratifying.
Well, I'm a firm believer that there's good carbs and bad carbs, and certainly refined carbs are not good carbs. But the carbs that come in berries and things like that are actually, they're food for the brain.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but I'm more kind of like the Led Zeppelin guy. Good carbs, bad carbs. I've had my share. So I haven't met a carb I didn't like.
Okay. Okay.
And so when I went low carb, which physiologically changes your body, I mean, your liver dumps all its glycogen, and you start burning energy a whole different way, and your body gets really mad at you for a couple of weeks. But after that, it's when plain yellow mustard starts tasting like candy, you've arrived.
There you go.
But I would be surrounded by people eating sweets, yeah, holiday time or any time, people just pounding sugar, and I would have to sit there and say, yeah, that fresh handmade tortilla with butter and sugar on it is one of my favorite foods in the world. It's like there's nothing better than just right when it comes off the tortilla grill, and it's just amazing. It's heaven, and I can't eat it because if I eat it, it's going to disrupt my physiology for a couple of weeks. It's going to mess me up. I have to go through all the body getting mad at me for 2 weeks to go back onto keto again, and so I would urge surf, and it worked for me. It worked really well. So I could just sit there and just longingly feel the desire and know that I had the power not to act on it.
Well, that's good. It keeps you visiting the bakery just for reinforcement of,
Right, just to keep myself tough,
yeah, exactly.
like like Mike Tyson hitting the bag.
Well, all these things take dedications, whether it's athletics, which is mind over matter, and what you're talking about, Scott.
Yeah, that's kind of an the shadow issue here is discipline.
Hmm.
and self-discipline, being able to uh, manage temptations, because the world is built on getting people to give in to temptation.
Well,
That's the whole model of selling and buying stuff.
it makes me wonder, as a true masochist who pays Olga to chain him to the wall and
Yeah.
beat him, he must have some pretty good skills at giving these things up.
You good or a decent safe word, one of the two.
Yeah, that's what we need. A safe word for carbs. I like that. Okay.
Yeah, I just for me it was with the carbs and with other things too. To be
Hmm.
honest, I mean it's like uh, as a human being of the male persuasion who's attracted to women, there are beautiful women walking around in the world, and I can't follow them all home. I've already got a stack of restraining orders about this high.
Well,
There are limits.
that's just you're just voicing them. But, we try and show a mature respect for other human beings, and that's certainly one of them.
But some of them like to play, right?
Well, that's all right. They can, but you
But
don't.
you're respecting them, maybe running with them for a couple few weeks or hours or minutes or whatever.
Well, they may like that, but you certainly don't have to act on it. And that there again, that's back to discipline. The toughest things I ever had to give up were nicotine and aspartame. And
I never met those two. Where were they? Did you go to school with those girls?
oh, I did not. But I'll tell you, they were bitches, both of them, and they like to grab you by the heart and massage it and keep you desiring them. And
That's a good reminder with almost everything that we desire is that they're not going to let you go once they get you.
well,
They,
it's that analogy. I've done a lot of public speaking, and the way I justified it in my mind to an audience was enjoying it so much was just like reaching in their chest and massaging their hearts for them to be listening to what I had to say for them, and I felt I was giving them a gift. And
yeah,
I wonder if nicotine feels that way too, that it's actually giving us a gift.
nicotine kept me sharp as a tack. That's the thing I really noticed when I quit smoking was how dumb I got. I maybe I'm over it now, but probably not.
Maybe it was a dose of
Um,
reality.
but nicotine chemically worked with my brain in some pretty supportive ways. It's like I just everything was really crisp. I could logically follow pathways and see where people were going with stuff, and when I first stopped smoking, I that was like one of the longing moments, right? That was one of the, oh gosh, I wish I was smart like I used to be.
If I only had a cigarette. Yeah. Well, and it's a remarkable antidepressant for some. For some.
And grasshopper poison for others.
Exactly. Exactly.
It doesn't work for everyone, but and that's but it is really good at creating urges. We you could kind of go down a list of things that you put in your body, and aspartame and nicotine are going to be pretty high on the list of I just did some and I'm going to want to do some more.
Yeah, absolutely. They mess with you chemically, and I think the manufacturers understood that when they were manufacturing.
They haven't really been held to account very tightly for that, but certainly, again, wouldn't that help your business model?
Making Yeah, that's what we
All I
should do.
have to do is sell you one of these, and I got you for you're my customer.
No, that's we need to become addictive, Scott. That's our
Right.
secret to
Well,
success. We're addictive, but first we have
the
to believe it.
the people who find things that people fall into temptation with are the people who end up getting very, very wealthy. And there's a long list of things, and there's a long list of people that have figured out something that they could sell that people fall in love with, and they want it over and over and over again. And
Well,
it's not like Toyota's last 25 years, so that's not really a good example. But a pack of cigarettes only lasts a day.
well, there's also the industry that helps people with those addictions, and that's a very big industry. Very big industry.
That's an interesting, being in and of that industry. It's always been interesting to me that the vast majority of people, vast, probably 85, 90%, get over their stuff by themselves.
Yeah.
And there may be a better or worse component for that, because maybe they turn into, in 12 step, it's called dry drunk. It's like I'm not drinking anymore, but I'm angry and resentful and grouchy and annoying, and just kind of like I haven't come to peace with myself, and I haven't chilled, and I'm not mellow. I'm acting like a person who really needs to drink, but I'm not drinking. And that. Maybe that's an impaired recovery. I don't know. It's not for me really to choose. But that was always the consideration. Like, did you go? You sought treatment for not smoking, right?
Did
You
I?
got hypnotized, right?
No, I handled it myself, and when it became an issue, I went and got the patches, which are a wonderful form of nicotine. But fair warning, they're harder to give up than the original source of nicotine.
Oh yeah. I never got to patches. I got the gum. Gum was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because by then they had all the you can't smoke indoors anymore. I mean, I grew up smoking indoors was normal and fine. So I had to live with that increased pariah thing, where I was pushed farther and farther away from the building if I wanted to smoke. Don't smoke around your kids. Don't smoke in the car with people. So the gum was like heaven sent, because now I can smoke and hang out, because I sit there and do nicotine basically. And but the gum actually at the end of the day did not help me stop. You're right. It kind of pushed me a little bit farther along.
Well, it delayed how you were trying to get there. And
Yeah.
and granted, there's some people that can't rationalize to themselves that they need to quit or how to quit, and I believe those are candidates for professional help.
Oh, so there's a couple of good points there. I think one is that there's in again in 12 step parlance, finding your bottom. Everybody's got a bottom. You just if you haven't quit, if you haven't really made the choice to stop yet, then you haven't found yours.
Yeah.
And so that's always been and there's some paradox and catch 22 stuff in that, but there's some truth in it too. And so that's the one. But then the second one is that different people need different levels of support to get where they need to get.
Yeah.
And part of being mature as an individual is figuring out where you're at. Could you just wake up one day and stop smoking, and maybe be grouchy for a couple of days, and then gradually you're over it, and you may for the next month have urges, but you don't give in to the urges, you serve the urges, and after a month or so the urges begin to die down, and now you're next smoker.
Well,
Or are you a person who needs to patch, or are you a person who needs to go get counseling because the reason you're smoking was because your mom and dad yelled too much at you, and you had all of this energy that you were trying to somehow maintain by smoking cigarettes.
well, the in hypnosis we were taught if you don't want to smoke anymore, I'll make that cigarette taste like the most foul food you can imagine. Like cauliflower. If you can't stand cauliflower, then we'd make it taste like cauliflower. But all that would really happen in about 48 hours is you would start to crave cauliflower.
Which is
That's how.
probably a healthier habituation, right?
Well, yeah,
It's a cruciform vegetable.
but is a testament to how powerful the subconscious mind is. Now, if I were to attempt it for someone, I would teach them your technique of enjoy the ride. Give them a little bit of masochistic denial, and enjoy it. And that might be the best therapy for getting through it.
You know, the trick to urge surfing is not to give in,
Right.
because it's almost like a kid having a temper tantrum. Uh, if they give you a 10-minute temper tantrum and you think you're an awesome parent because you haven't given into the tantrum, and after 10 minutes you go like, oh man, I just can't handle this anymore, I'm getting a headache, and you give into it, you've taught them 10 minutes is like when you really when they're going to put their fourth quarter helmet on, right?
Yeah,
They're going to be
exactly.
like, it's the fourth quarter, I'm coming now, I'm going to go harder.
Exactly. Well,
So with urge surfing, it's the same thing. Once you begin to say, I'm feeling this, I'm going to feel it, but I'm not going to give into it. That's it. End of story. You can't change that ending, because you're just teaching yourself to, like, I'm going to feel it. I'm going to feel it. I'm going to feel it, and then I'm going to give into it. And that's not what you want to do.
no, absolutely. It's just a lie to yourself. You either lied to yourself initially, or you're allowing your subconscious to rule your world and your life, and nobody wants that.
All right. Are you ready to stick a pin in Judge Dredd?
Okay.
I was thinking about Judge Dredd. I was thinking, I want to be Jury Dredd. I want to be like the next iteration of the Dreads, bringing justice to the world. But Judge was already taken, so I want to be Jury. So all
Well,
12 of my personalities are gonna, like, debate on whether or not this person needs to be brought to justice.
so you're going to sit in judgment of everything and everybody. Wow, that's a lot of
Yeah.
work.
Hey, you know what? It made a star out of Stallone. I'm ready to do that. I'm at a point in my life. I don't have a lot going on. The
Well,
revenue certainly never hurts anyone.
well, Scott, you're no Stallone, and Stallone made his way long before he became an advocate or felt self-empowered to tell people what they should be doing.
He had a real vision about who he was and how he wanted to get there, and he stuck to it. He's a very determined individual,
Absolutely, absolutely.
and yeah, yeah, lots of that's why I want to go. That's why I want to, like, follow in his footsteps. Since he already carved out the path, I just want to, meander along it.
Well, maybe should I
But
recommend steroids to you? Maybe a good dose of anabolic steroids on a biweekly basis should maybe it'll get you right where he is.
well, and I've got the perfect, I've been working out a little bit, so I've already got the punchline to this worked out. So yeah, yeah, I've been working out a little bit.
Well,
Why?
the risk you run is you might not be able to say California anymore, like our former governor.
Yeah. No, they wanted to treat a couple of things I had with steroids once upon a time, a couple of decades back, and I said, thanks, but no thanks, man. This stuff carries a lot of weight.
That's a good decision, and they're not all created equal. So remind people
No.
that some of them you may need to survive.
Oh, absolutely. And this wasn't survival. So let's get on. This is an interesting topic because there are things that worry us. There are things we feel dread about. There are things that we dislike, that are non-preferred. Some people would say, "No, I hate that." Let's talk honestly here. I hate that. Um, that uses up a lot of energy, and it can be really distracting, because pretty soon you could walk around being grouchy all day because the universe, the universe isn't doing what you want it to do. And it could be anything. It could be your back. It could be the traffic driving across town in the holidays with all the goofy people that are visiting from out of town that don't know where they're going, and they're cutting lanes and running red lights. And, you know, yeah, that's me. I'm grouchy about that. or it could be the world politics, or it could be the weather. It's funny. It's like whack-a-mole, right? What if you want to be angry about something? There's always a really decent list of things to be angry about in the world.
Well, I don't believe that, Scott. I don't. There's a really short or non-existent list of things that are worth risking your health so you can
I I
relish
agree.
in anger.
I see people who seem to relish in anger. or who may be so caught up in the cycle of dread, of worrying about stuff with that tinge of anger about it as well, because eventually you get mad at the things you're worrying about, um, to the point where it really consumes them, or it's taking more of their life than they would rather have it take. And that's really what we're going to talk about, is for those people who say, you know what, I'm tired of being worried about politics every day. My goodness, I need to, find a better way to be in this world, because ultimately, and it's funny, everything's bouncing back to 12 step today. Hey, 12 step people out there, thank you for hooking me up, because there's some good ideas in 12 step, but it bounces back to kind of the serenity prayer. If we're walking around with a head full of stuff that we can't change, that we're not accepting, then it creates a tension, it creates an energy, and that energy doesn't go, it's not going to make the plants grow, it's not going to make the birds sing, and it's not going to pay the bills. It's just going to fester, and sure, soon enough you're going to have to urge surf your back pain because you're so grouchy all day that your back muscles tightened up, and one thing leads to another. So
Well,
that's what we're going to talk about.
okay, okay, I'm with
All
you.
right. But you've already kind of, sounds like you are in some ways have already gone through this, because you've limited your list of things to worry about or get grouchy about, and you've got a small list now.
I don't know that I even have a list, Scott. It just was never beneficial to me. Probably the one thing that I have a lot of trouble dealing with is screaming children, or parents screaming at children. It's just like fingernails on a chalkboard to me. I
Yeah.
wasn't allowed to scream as a child, and I'm a firm believer that children should not scream unless they're in trouble.
When did you actually start screaming then?
I didn't.
Like
No, the only time I
15, and all of a sudden it's like
no, 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 no,
15
no.
years worth of scream coming out of you.
No, when I coached, I screamed, but it was an effect. It was for effect. And if you played for me very long, you quickly realized that, and I would catch them snickering at me when I was trying to make a demonstrative point of importance. So I even gave that up. It was just pointless. So just wasn't beneficial. But I thought all coaches on a high level needed to yell for whatever reason.
So for all of you out there that were on the edges of your seats, just in case it's not a screamer,
No,
you're not gonna get that with him.
you're not. Only for effect. If I'm screaming, it is for effect. It's not real. You might as well snicker or laugh.
Well, one of the reasons I was laughing is because when screaming children is not, or adults screaming at children, which I would even rank a little bit higher on the irritant scale. It's like, come on, find some management techniques here. Louder is not a technique. Um, um, is it's super annoying. But then I go right back to can I change it or control it? And I don't know that I've ever really stepped in and said, let me give you some tips here in the moment, either to the kid or the parent.
Well,
So I feel out of control in that time. It's like I can't fix this.
I learned a long time ago, stepping into fist fights between husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend, that to stop the fight. But the summation of that was I had two adults hitting me. How dare
Yeah,
I?
yeah. Yeah. That's actually dog park wisdom too.
Exactly. So, uh, I may be a little callous to that. I'm certainly not going to allow anybody to get physically harmed to any semblance of a degree. I'll stop it, but I'll judge it
But
before I get
that
involved.
vapid screaming that just
Yeah.
you might be flying coach on the plane, and the kid next to you is just 100 is going to have a temper tantrum the entire trip, and the parent's going to start escalating too, and nobody's going. It's not going to come to blows or anything, but lucky you.
Well, when I was younger, I'm a firm believer in the law of attraction. What you put out there is what comes to you. And when I was younger and not quite a prize fighter, but pretty close, women were attracted to me, and I finally woke up to the day that they were trying to encourage me to harm others to prove that I cared about them. And that
Yeah.
once that light bulb went off, it was like, oh no, no, no. Well, what did I do? I
Yeah, that
changed.
was always a red flag for me.
Yeah, changed my behavior. I would say, why are you talking to that person? No, I'm not going to go. I don't care.
Or as my wife would lovingly point out to me, there's a difference between jealousy and concern,
Right.
and you need to know the difference.
Well, no, absolutely. And jealousy is, everybody should give that up as a resolution.
Is pitting the pit bull against the German Shepherd because you think it's a better fighter.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. And to me, jealousy is one of the saddest emotions that human beings possess.
Join us next week when we talk about open relationships on
Yeah.
American consciousness.
Yes, American consciousness, swinging with the best of them.
Yeah, yeah. So, but this technique. So let me circle back to it.
Okay.
So, what does you got screaming children and a screaming parent, and you're absolutely trapped. So you're in the coach chair of a 3-hour flight. What I'm so, but nowadays most of us have earbuds, so there may actually be some sort of respite or a solution there. But let's pretend there isn't. This technique that I'm calling is basically embracing the things you avoid the hardest. And that means I can't stand it when children and adults screaming at each other, parenting stuff, and nothing's getting better, nothing's getting solved. It's just over and over. So for me, that's part of the problem. It's not just loud and annoying. It's not leading anywhere.
Right.
It's like I'm all about like how do you fix something, not about how do you like watch it be broken. So or whine about it being broken. That's even worse. So for me, I would sit there and I would embrace it. I would say I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to feel all of the false starts. I'm going to feel all of the escalation points. Oh, there's an
Wow.
exclamation. There's
Wow.
an exclamation. Oh, look what that kid just did to the mom. Oh my goodness, that was and what the technique is doing is almost the same as urge surfing. It's taking something that you don't like and pushing you to have to accept it through immersion, if you will.
Right.
At the dog park, there are several and I'm probably the youngest member, but I who are all looking at late life developmental issues. What if I get dementia and you take my license away? How am I going to survive? What if somebody needs to change my diapers? All of these things that we, and because we've gone through this with our parents, we know this is like inevitable, and so but part of you is like, I'm just going to keep whistling past the graveyard, and that's my coping strategy.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
just going to say, well, I'm just going to die in my sleep when I'm 96. Good luck.
Well, no, no. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Well, we will, but at a lot of the people at the dog park are legit concerned. I mean, if you drop somebody's name and you're 75 years old, you're like, oh, this is it, isn't it? And if you're worried about being a burden, or you're worried about losing your individuality or your independence, uh, now you've got something to really chew on. And so what we do at the dog park is we'll stop and just dive into it. And so yeah, so okay, you just forgot somebody's name. I mean, that never happens to any of us ever, right? But that's dementia. Now what?
Well,
How are you going to manage that? What are you going to do? What does it feel like? Why does it hurt so bad? Do you think you're special? And so we'll sit there and we will immerse into it because at the end of the day, it a lot of what's fueling the pain or what's fueling the anxiety is the fact that we're avoiding it. Like this can't be happening. It's happening. Now what? And as you said, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. This is a way of uh, previewing crossing that bridge.
Well, absolutely. And, I've discussed before, my primary technique is delusion. So I'm that person that is going to say it'll never happen to me. And,
You're going to die in your sleep in your mid 90s, and you know what? You may be able to push that intention to the end, right? I mean, because who knows what the subconscious is capable of.
well, when I think about dementia, and there's a lot of people with partial dementia, there's a lot of things in my lifetime I would just as soon forget.
Well, yeah, I actually wrote a book that was written by a person uh, who was experiencing dementia onset, and so I had to learn a lot first of all, but then I had to kind of keep putting myself in that place, and it was like after a while it was almost catching. I would do all sorts of things that people with dementia symptoms do, and it was like it's hard to turn it off at the end of the day. But for me, that's a way I can cope is by just taking it and pushing it and feeling it and letting it sink in and saying, "Oh, that's the worst it can be." And look at me, I'm still sitting here. I'm still hanging out. I've still got something I may need to deal with, but it hasn't killed me. It hasn't done as nearly as bad to me as what I thought it was going to do, even in my imagining the worst case scenario. And that's what the trick. The trick is what are you avoiding? Because some of us avoid stuff so well that we don't even know we're avoiding it. That's how good we are at this skill.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
oh, really? That's something you're avoiding.
Well, yeah, it'd never catch up to us. If we perfect our techniques to have avoidance or delusion, use our delusion, put it to work for us, that's a skill in itself.
So if somebody said, well, what are you avoiding? Well, nothing really. I'm
Yeah,
completely
that's where my
authentic. I'm completely authentic to myself, and there's nothing there. And but keep those French fries away from me.
no, absolutely, absolutely. Well, okay, so you had this conversation at the dog park, and I'm sure it was a very interesting conversation. Now after it was over, do you think the participants felt better about themselves afterwards?
Well, like one of the people who's and like I said, several of us are worried about dementia because we're at that age. And one of them said, I think the most important thing I need to remember is whatever happens, I'm in God's hands. And they had really de-escalated from the beginning of the conversation when it seemed like theoretically this was the end of the world. And so from that standpoint, I think that there was some value in it. But it's a messy path. It's not fun to think about. I mean, let's pretend you thought that touching dog poop, another reality of the dog park, that was the most disgusting thing in the world, and it was going to kill you.
Then I wouldn't go
Touching
there.
dog poop isn't. You're gonna have to. Probably should wash your hands, and there's
Right.
no denying basic biology. But it ain't going to kill you. And so imagining it so that you're not freaking out every time you see dog poop in the dog park is a useful technique. And it's like, oh, I'm avoiding this. Well, it's not that scary. Spiders, good
Right.
example.
Right.
Right? Most spiders they can crawl on you. It's no big deal. And unless they feel really endangered or threatened, they typically aren't going to bite you because you're not their dinner. It's a waste of poison. Same
Well,
thing with rattlesnakes.
not necessarily with rattlesnakes, but with spiders, absolutely. And spiders will not kill you. And rolling with the punches of, not that I learned way too much about snakes at a very young age, rolling with the punches of a rattlesnake bite or a copperhead bite or a water moccasin bite controlling your emotions and avoiding the adrenaline rush is going to help save your life if it was a dangerous bite.
Yeah, no, snakes could kill you, but they don't get up in the morning going, "I'm gonna kill me a human."
Nope. Nope. Well,
They're just they get freaked out. They're like dogs that bite out of fear. It's like they get freaked out and
okay.
and they're startled, and this is their defense mechanism.
Okay, but okay.
And you triggered it.
I will warn people, if you see a pretty green rattlesnake, which means you're seeing a Mojave rattlesnake that just shed its
Yep,
skins, they
they
are
are very aggressive.
they are very aggressive and they want to bite you. And mambas and some snakes like that actually hunt people, and we just consider them in a demon state. The green Mojave demon state. A week after that is going to settle down and go back to being a rattlesnake.
I'll give you the dog park comparison.
Okay.
So like some dogs guard their immediate, like I've got a little dog, a Chihuahua Pekingese mix, and she won't like growl or react or anything until somebody puts her nose like in her butt or something. It's she's that they could be all around her and she won't do anything. But I've also got an Australian Shepherd mix, and she thinks the entire dog park is her space.
Right.
And so if somebody's 100 yards away doing something that she thinks isn't something somebody should be doing, like the maintenance guys taking out the trash because they didn't come with a dog, so they're suspect. She will go charging over to deal with that, and much to my embarrassment. Um, so I think that with the Mojaves and the Mambas and some of those more aggressive snakes, what you're seeing is you're in their territory, you're in their space. The problem is their space is way expanded,
Right.
and they deal with problems by biting them.
Hmm. Right.
And so for sure, I mean, I'm not discounting that at all. But most snakes would rather survive and not waste their poison.
Right.
So most
Absolutely.
spiders, same thing.
Right. Most spiders are not going to kill you, but yeah, and spiders are good, as are snakes.
Oh
It's
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
part of the balance.
One of those 3-year-old Scott lessons. I was running around my grandpa's cabin, killing spiders. He's like, "Scotty, what are you doing?" "I'm getting on rid of all these spiders for your grandpa. You don't want bugs in your house." It's like, "Scotty, Scotty, 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 Scotty." You'd always get a downslope like that.
Yeah.
Whenever I was going to get like you're not thinking this through, kid. So he would say, "You know what? Those spiders kill mosquitoes, they kill flies, they kill cockroaches, they kill all other sorts of stuff we need. They're good for us. We don't want to kill them." And that was it. I was done. 3 years old. I like, okay. So even now, like if a black widow were walking across my floor right now, I'd catch it and let it go. I'd put it outside in a good black widow spot. I wouldn't just like throw it to the wind.
Well,
I'd look for a good black widow spot.
you and I live in a spider central part of the world, and there's one spider that we live with that if you ever see a spider moving across a wall so fast that you can hardly watch him, that would be a brown recluse spider. And every once in a while, I get one in my office. I'll go, damn, I've got a recluse in here.
I have not had any encounters with them, at least that I'm aware of. I can always remember when I moved here from Michigan, uh, that first day where I stuck my hand inside a box and felt like a really heavy, sticky
Hmm.
spider web. And I was like, oh. And at first I was like, no big deal. And then I would open up the box and there'd be a black widow in it. And I'd be like, so after a while, I got really good at like, I'm reaching my hand into some odd place and I feel that sticky web and I'm like, whoops, wrong spot.
Yeah, right,
Get the
right.
hand out.
Well, and we get them in our garage, and I'll tolerate a few of them. But once the garage gets overpopulated, it's time to. I would discipline your grandfather. I would bug bomb the garage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I still do relocation stuff. I'm like, you know what? I'll do it with wasps and bees as well. Um, it's like if I can coexist with you, then you're okay. I'm not going to move you just because you're in my yard.
Right, right. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. And
I had a beehive with a back entrance to my garage in between the walls, but they didn't use the same entrance I used. So I left it. They were there for like 8 years. And
And my,
I go in there to do my rocks and do other projects and put stuff away and deal in my garage. And you could like hear the wall going.
how big was that hive? Did you ever go into the wall to collect the honey?
I never went into the wall to figure it out. Eventually, life happened and the hive stopped working. It was actually, I considered it part of my home security system
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
during the daytime, nobody could use that access point to get into my yard because it was defended. And by this point, all the local bees were Africanized.
Yeah.
So that's the you don't want to go poking sticks into those hives.
No, you don't. But even them, we can coexist with them as well. It's just a matter of our behavior. And
Well,
it's
and again, people are definitely afraid of those things. Just imagining that coexistence, just embracing that avoidance. Just sitting outside next to a wasp hive without poking sticks at it, and just watching them come and go. You know what's interesting? You said that about the Mojaves when they're fresh. Wasps, when they're fresh, are overly aggressive, and their impulse control is really bad. And so you have to kind of wait until they've been alive a couple of weeks, and then they start figuring out this is not a threat, and then they stop like being so aggressive. But right when they're born, they're like, "Oh, you're 15 feet away from me. I need to like buzz you." I'm like, "Grow
well,
up, guys."
what I learned about growing up with the wasps is they're in constant search of water, and in the desert there's not a lot of water, so they will protect that water source if they're being kept away from it.
I keep water sources for my wasps.
Well, and your bees, both.
Yeah, I do. I do with little sticks so that if they actually get in the water somehow and can't get out, they have a way to kind of walk out of the water.
Wow, you're breeding a better, you know, a, a, a tender wasp and bee. Mine they either sink or swim. It's selective order.
Again, random true story. My mom was having a yard sale, and I'm the tall person in the house, so it was my job to tie up all the strings that she was using to hang clothes. And so I'm tying up this line on the patio covering, and I can't see. It's like way up there, right? And so I'm tying it, and it's not working right. So finally, I kind of position myself so that I can look up and see, and my hand is like this far away from a wasp nest about this big of paper wasps, covered with paper wasps, and they weren't doing anything in my hand. And I saw that, and I said, "Okay, guys, I owe you a debt for life."
Yeah, thank you. Well, and growing up in Phoenix, I've stepped on scorpions multiple times, but never bitten by.
Nice.
It would always be the dark. I'd say, "What did I step on?" I'd turn on the light, it'd be a scorpion, and I would say, "Oh, thank you, Mr. Scorpion," and I would escort them out of the house.
I go out in the summer with a UV light, and I'm always like I'm laughing at how common and frequent scorpions are. It's like
Oh yeah.
they're pretty good at not being seen because you go out at night with a glow in the dark thing that makes them glow. You're like, oh look, there's like 80 scorpions within 10 feet of me.
Well, yeah, and they are primarily nocturnal.
Mm-hmm. Very much so, especially here because it's so hot in the daytime.
Well, they have their time to hunt, and that's when bugs like to be out.
Yeah,
So okay, back to it. So we're not afraid of bugs.
we're not, but there are a lot of people who
There
who,
are.
who certainly are. How would you like to walk around all day worrying about whether there was a spider in your house instead of worrying how to pay your bills or worrying how to you know whether you might need medicine for something? There's lots of things to worry about. Is spiders really the thing you want to put on your list?
Well, and it's an unnatural fear, so it comes from somewhere, and it can be paralyzing for some. I mean, just totally paralyzing.
I'm not going to go back to the unicorn dream, but I
Thank,
had
thank
a
goodness.
dream.
I was afraid of that, Scott, that you were going to go
Now
back
that you
there.
brought it up,
Yeah.
I had a dream about a week ago where I walked into this guy's house and he had a spider web up in the corner, and I went to go uh, get rid of it for him to clean it up for him. Tall guy thing again, right? I'm always like dealing with things that not tall people can't see or deal with, and it belonged to a giant black widow, and I couldn't move, and it climbed down and it climbed onto my face. and it was sitting on my face, and I was trying to like brush it off, and I couldn't move my arms because this is like when you get sleep paralysis and you're dreaming, sleep paralysis just figures out a way to add it to the story, right? And so sleep paralysis figured that if I had a huge spider on my face ready to bite me, that would be a wonderful opportunity to prove that my brain was disconnected and unable to move my body because I was sleeping. And so I'm trying to move to swat the spider, and my arms won't move, right? And so finally I was like, finally I got my arms to move, but by then the spider left. I was like thanking the spider. I was like, thank you for not biting me. That would have been an awful ending.
Well, it would have been, and the spider's just lucky you didn't call on one of your unicorns to deal with it.
Right, right. I have never. I have frequent sleep paralysis, but the unicorns have never made it into those narratives. But I'm not scared of sleep paralysis. There's another really good example. I could avoid sleep. Some people are terrified by it. It's a really interestingly powerless feeling to be dreaming and not be able to move, and have something that really necessitates movement.
Yeah, but Scott, you recognize that you're asleep. You
I
recognize that you're
do,
dreaming.
and when I wake up from it, I'm not like, oh, that was an awful experience. I'm like, well, that was interesting. So when the sea wolves were chasing me in the ocean and I couldn't swim, that was like, okay, this is really interesting, unique. Did you know wolves can live in the sea in dreams, like underwater? They didn't come up for air or anything. They were like sleek sea lions, but they were timber wolves. It was very interesting.
Well, maybe they were hybrids. There are so few.
Good. I did not have a conversation with them, so indeed.
No, I don't. I don't have the luxury of those dreams. I did as a child, but not anymore. So my dreams
Yeah.
are all very plausible.
But it's a good example again of that thing that you might be fearfully avoidant of. And some people are really scared of nightmares, and it's like, well, embrace the nightmare, go back and relive the nightmare blow by blow and say, wow, and at the end, you're still alive. You're doing it. It didn't harm you as much as you might have thought when you first woke up. And then you get resilience. You get strengthened at the end of the day. Every time you can go back and deal with something that you're avoiding, and just embrace it. Just give it your best attention without judging it, without hating it, without getting all sorts of emotional tie up. Just look at it and say, "Oh, that's what that is." Oh, yeah, every month I'm paying bills.
Well,
It
exactly.
shouldn't have to be economic drama that reverberates through a whole family, or affects your performance at work or somewhere else. It shouldn't be that way. And by embracing it, by really sitting with it and just understanding it for what it is, you have a chance to then move on from it. And then again, like the 12-step people would say so poetically, you know, is it can I change it? Change it. It's going to take discipline, it's going to take work, it's going to take whatever. If I can't change it, then let it go.
Well, I agree, and I don't. You don't strike me as living in a drama-filled lifestyle, and
No, I'm
I
too boring for that.
yeah. So am I. And I would assume the people at the dog park are so grounded in their patterns in life that they don't embrace drama too much anyway.
It is a really diverse group, and but one of the things I think the regulars have in common, not everybody, because some people come just once in a great while, but certainly the regulars, dog parks teach you tolerance,
Yeah.
because every day the dog park is going to have a different pack of dogs, and there may be a dog in that dog park that does not like your dog, and it wasn't anything your dog did, or your dog may be the butthead in the park, and maybe doing things that offend or scare other people, or bother other dogs. And then it's but each day is kind of a management issue, and each day that something happens, I think the awareness is that there's always a possibility for something to happen at a dog park. It's unrealistic to go into a dog park thinking that there's never going to be some sort of dog interaction possibility that might be less preferred. And by accepting that, then you're ready for it. Then you can respond to it. Then you and respond to it in a way that doesn't escalate it. So, if your dog starts being that yelling child, you don't start yelling at your dog.
Well, we talk about dealing with stuff, and at 5 o'clock this morning, I awoke to a 3.3 earthquake, and the epicenter was about 500 yards from
It
my
was in your
house.
backyard.
Yeah, it was 500 yards from my house. But if that's going to terrorize you or terrify you, I suggest you move to a part of the country that doesn't have those types of earthquakes. Here, it's just another day. You go, wonder where
I
that
almost
was.
texted you and said, "Stop dancing. What the hell?"
Yeah,
Early.
exactly. My cat woke at the same time and looked at me and said, "What are you going to do about that?" And it was over.
Yeah, the good thing about modest sized earthquakes close to you is it's pretty much just like a quick jab. It's thunk, and then with the big ones that were farther away, you get this kind of wavy ocean effect going on.
Well, you can, and they're all different. They're all designed different, and this one had some duration to it, but not much, not much. But
Well,
that's
see, people are scared to death of earthquakes.
so we live here, and our first thought is, I wonder where that was.
Yeah, yeah.
When we get a chance, we go look.
Well,
Uh,
and I'll be honest. The first thing I do is, okay, that was this strong, and the epicenter was this far away. So I'm already kind of like a sommelier of earthquakes
mhm.
after 35 years here. And so I kind of feel the intensity of it, feel how it hit, and make a good guess about like where it happened. But I know people who, we've had some fairly significant earthquakes while I've been here,
Yeah.
who after an earthquake like that for months could not even would not, could not enter a building. Do you know how inconvenient that would be? I
Oh,
mean, even today with delivery groceries, it would still be dragged.
our epicenter was, or the epicenter of the big Easter quake, which was, I think, what, 7.6 magnitude,
Yeah, yeah.
was 30 miles due south of us, and we were right on that fault line, and we thought
Yeah.
in
I
our
spent all summer
household,
picking up crap, okay?
well, no, in our household, we thought, damn, that was a big, long duration earthquake, and it was. And the power went out. No big deal. The power's out. But then we go start to check things and get outside. And when I got outside, what surprised me is I had neighbors that were Korean War vets walking up and down the street in shock, total
Wow.
shock. So I was going, I've got to do something. And there was so many of them, there wasn't a lot I could do other than go interact with them and try and get them to sit down. We need you to quit walking. You need to sit down. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. But that surprised me. So some people, it's like, wow, that's a big earthquake. Other people, it's like, this is the end. This is Armageddon.
Yeah. No, I remember that well. I mean, and I was just getting ready to take a nap. So I was kind of angry that my nap was interrupted. I just laid down and then I was up and under the doorway. But my first thing was, I've got a house with visitors because it was my family visiting from Michigan, and I've got floors full of broken glass. So before I even like do anything else, I'm gonna stop and sweep up all this damn broken glass so nobody cuts their foot. I want to spend the rest of the night with aftershocks in the ER room waiting for somebody to get stitched up.
How did your out of town visitors handle it? They rolled with the punches,
There,
right?
you know, it was it wasn't as catastrophic for them as it was for like my mother-in-law.
Okay.
My mother-in-law started calling out to obscure saints that she had claimed to have renounced years ago.
Well,
And
maybe,
it's like,
maybe
oh, when the money's on the table, huh? You're right back in you're right back in Mary's arms. I see how this works.
she may have saved you all.
Indeed, she may have. I went over and grabbed. I've got from my great grandparents. I've got a segmented glass faced oak shelf bookcase,
Hmm.
and it was doing this. It was like doing the Weebles wobble thing, and I was like, and after I got my kids under the doorway, and I rushed over and held up the bookcase so I wouldn't fall over.
Well, we were getting ready to go
Things
out to.
things before people. We have to have priorities in life.
Well, we were going out to eat, and we were probably 6 feet from each other. And with one hand, I grabbed my better half, and the other hand, I grabbed the flat panel TV,
Mm.
and we wrote it out.
Yeah, I lost a few TVs in that war.
I didn't lose. All we lost was a bowl, and we were very close. But we are in a residence. It's a stick house that's been through three major quakes. So you didn't have to really worry about the house, but you had to worry about stuff, and we were fortunate. So
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I bought a stick house.
right,
Was because I realized that it had been through several large earthquakes, and
yeah,
it rode this one out really well.
yeah, bricks don't do well in earthquakes.
No, nor do concrete foundations.
Right, right, right. So
But
okay,
we're not scared of that because we've embraced we've our avoidance. At some point, we sat down with earthquakes and said, you know what, this is going to happen, and there are going to be some consequences. But I'm not going to be climbing the walls, worried about the possibility of it happening.
well, absolutely, and now we have apparently an earthquake alarm that's going to warn us on our cell phone.
Did yours go off? Mine didn't go off today.
Mine didn't go off, and then when they have gone off, they've been late, so they were during the earthquake. So I quickly turned off that notification because the
Yeah,
system is
I
flawed.
got one that was far enough away that I barely felt it, and then I was like, okay, this is not going to save my life.
Spending a little bit of my childhood in Omaha, which was famous for
Tornadoes.
tornadoes and tornado sirens, which would go off all the time. And it's just, you didn't care because it's just a siren and nobody reacted to them. I mean, people didn't run to the basement. If a tornado's coming, you can hear it. If the big earthquake is coming, you can hear it if you recognize that sound.
That weird, distant but ominous freight train about to hit you.
Both of them sound like that.
Yes,
Exactly.
both of them about like that.
So, it's just, yeah, you're right. You either learn to deal with it, and if you can't deal with it, move. If you can't deal with hurricanes, get out of hurricane country.
And what are we? And like a lot of us avoid stuff with our health. A
Right,
lot of us avoid stuff with our wealth, with our money.
right.
And we end up being in scary positions because we're not really just sitting with, okay, this is the reality of the situation. It's why am I worrying about it? What do I need to do?
Well, and there's a reality of both those things that you can't you can't protect yourself from all of it or any of it.
No,
You
that's
even
correct. They're out of your control.
yeah, your health can devastate you financially, and financial devastation can devastate your health. So it's just, you do the best you can, and you can't really necessarily worry about it. Health insurances may fail you, doctors may fail you.
The
So,
government
yeah,
may fail you.
well, absolutely. But we've been conditioned for that. If they promise us something, we just don't necessarily believe it's ever going to happen.
No, absolutely. But you and I live in a community that without water or electricity, we're gonna have some big issues fairly quickly.
No, absolutely. But I certainly have enough water available to survive a week, if not more. And that's not even talking about toilet tank water and hot water heater water. But if it were July and we didn't have electricity for an extended period of time, our health would be in danger.
Yeah, you get wet bulb temperatures hot enough, and people just start dropping, no matter how much water they're drinking or anything.
Well, right. It's just in elderly people like you, Scott. They're just your danger is magnified.
One step out of the grave, baby.
But you can ride that unicorn to safety. Then you have that advantage that none of us do.
I'll give you an example. I've lost several generations of people to falls as they gotten older, and I have always been a faller.
Yeah,
It's just it's part of my makeup is to move first and ask questions later, and
exactly.
and that can put you in some weird positions. So I have really made a conscious effort, instead of just being scared of falling, to start working on things like balance, and
Right.
it's working on things like slowing my reaction, and not doing like instantaneous, like stopping and thinking before I start moving. And that's kind of the coping strategy, so that's, instead of accepting the fact that someday I'm going to fall and die, which may still happen, I'm trying to, like, courage to change, stopping and developing some anti-fall practices.
Well, which is comforting in itself. I mean, you're doing something for yourself. It may have no bearing on the outcome, but at least
Oh, that's a good point. Yep.
you're doing something for yourself, and that's a good thing. I'm a faller too. Always have been a faller. I'm a big person. It scares people when I fall. Makes a lot of noise.
Right.
Do I hurt myself? No. Why? Because I've fallen my entire life. I've fallen down mountains. I've fallen into big tanks in the woods. I mean, I just fall. And I don't, and it's a protection system to protect my injured ankles from my athletic days, that I'm going to fall as opposed to roll an ankle.
Yeah, my ankles aren't very useful anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, and knowing how to land is actually one of those life-saving techniques as well.
Well, and you and I've both fallen so much that it's slow motion. I have time to roll and I have time to get my arms out of the way and determine where I'm going to fall and if I'm going to break my
Which of my stiff, sore joints do I want to land on?
exactly. So it's just something that we deal with that other people might be devastating for, but we've learned how to fall.
In slow motion, my body's going, my shoulders going, my left shoulder's going, no, not me, not this time, somebody else, somebody else. Come on, guys, stand up. My hip, my right hip's going, no, 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 I'm still bad from last time. It's not me. And I'm going, come on, guys, decide. We've got like a millisecond here.
No, it's much longer than that. It's seconds, but yeah, it is fractions of seconds, but to me, it's just like athletics. It slows down. It's all slow motion. It's not. It's disgusting. It's embarrassing. It's not frightening.
So your life was flashing before your eyes, but instead of focusing on that movie, you were focusing on trying to figure out how to land.
I've never been blessed with my life flashing before my eyes, and I'm
I
not
think you
sure.
only get one of those. I think you only get one.
Yeah, well, I'm not looking forward to it.
But it'll happen inevitably.
Well, it may. That may be
Oh, so we could get like cloning or something, and we could just keep going forever. That
well,
sounds like fun.
yeah. I just want to be called Dolly.
If we did get that and we did go forever, we'd always have to do chores. They're every day there for eternity. There'd be a list of stuff you had to do, and if you didn't do those things, like things would start to fall apart or degrade, or you know, too much cat hair or whatever the situation is.
Well, and our subconscious would really be adept at messing with us.
Like it isn't already.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that may be why, Scott.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Interesting conversation. You want to give us a couple? I really
Sure,
like. I
takeaways,
like your coping skill. The one coping skill of masochistic behavior is, I think, a
right?
good one. So, what else you got?
Feel it and enjoy it. So the next time you have an urge to do something, and there's a part of you that says, "Well, I really shouldn't do this," even though you're dying to do it, those are perfect. Surf it. Just stay with that thought. Stay with that thought, and don't give into it. Just like a toddler having a tantrum, don't ever say yes to it, and just sit there and feel it as long as you can until the wave diminishes, because the wave will go away. It'll break on the shore, and then you will have survived the worst of an urge to do something. And once you begin to survive those on a regular basis, you have power over them. So you're never going to get sucked up in an urge and have to do something that you're going to regret later. And so that's urge surfing. And then the other one, which is related to that, is embracing the avoidance, figuring out what you are worried about, what you're scared about, what you don't like thinking about, and thinking about it. And not thinking about it in kind of hateful push away terms, not building walls, embracing, coming into it and saying, why am I scared of dying? Why haven't I taken better charge of my health? Why am I always paying late fees on bills? What is that? And then beginning to manage it in some more practical way if it's changeable, or accepting it. Something like you're going to die someday,
Yep.
um, because it's not changeable. Because unless they perfect cloning and you're high up on some list, which none of us, I don't know anybody that high on a list. We're not going to avail ourselves of that. And like I said, I don't want to, have to do kitty litter every day for the next 1,000 years anyway.
So
So,
you wouldn't stand in line to come back.
oh God,
Yeah.
I'm like on the field of life. I'm the guy sitting there going, Coach, sub me in, sub me in.
Take me out, coach.
Send in the second string.
Yeah. I'm
And
going to
coach,
tap.
we both been coaches. So coach is like, no, you're fine, man. Stay in there.
Yeah. Rub some dirt on it. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. Well, we are the rub some dirt on it generation.
We are, and happily so, because that's
Excellent.
an okay way to be.
Absolutely. That's how we started to develop our coping skills.
Right.
Right.
The
Right.
MRSA that we got from rubbing dirt in it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everybody. Hey, this has been Justin Case and Scott bringing you American Consciousness. Thanks for joining us. Remember, additional information and links provided in this video is read more. Today's the day to learn how to cope. So consider subscribing to this channel. Please learn more about Scott when time permits.